I'm Jim Check. You're watching KelownaNow with me, Trace Akers from Road Safety at Work. We're going to talk road safety, right? Well, you cover off a lot just to do with work road safety, but it all kind of blends into everything though, right?
That's right. So at Road Safety at Work, our mission is really to try to protect those people who drive for work or work at the roadside. But a lot of the messages, a lot of the information that we give out is practical information for anyone who's on the road, particularly at this time of the year.
And it's usually like that first snowfall too, when we see a lot of accidents as people don't adjust their driving habits to that less braking power, less turning, a whole bunch of less, right?
Yeah.
And they continue on in their similar habits, right?
Well, I think one of the other things too in BC we have is a bit of a unique issue in that if you look at a province like Quebec or Ontario, winter comes and then winter is there for 3 or 4 months.
Right, yeah.
So people can kind of get used to the conditions and then adjust their driving for the conditions. In BC, we have coastal regions. We have mountainous passes. So a lot of the driving here can change pretty quickly, pretty rapidly, depending on the weather conditions and where you're driving. So in BC, it's unique because driving in wet weather can be just as hazardous as driving in snow. So we have that as well as the changing elevations.
Yeah, I was going to say the elevations
conditions.
as you coming down snow, wet ice.
That's
snow.
right.
You know what I mean? Like you can get pockets of black ice even when you think the road's wet and stuff like that too.
That's right. And that the real danger zone is from about 5 degrees Celsius to -5 Celsius because you get so much variation in there. It can go from wet roads to frozen roads overnight. You come out in the morning and all of a sudden you're dealing with frost and pretty slick roads. So you have to basically be ready for anything in BC at this time of the year.
Yeah, I can remember driving in Alberta as a youth and coming up and seeing like taillights stacked, and I could see them, like obviously the vehicles on its side, and it seemed like bare roads. And then I went to brake, and I just slid forever because it was black ice, and you don't even notice it. But then there was another vehicle that was up in the ditch, right? So black ice can be very treacherous, right?
Black ice is a big problem, so you really have to be aware of where it could come about. So, for example, on a shaded road, let's say the sun hasn't hit a particular section of the road yet. That's where you're going to find black ice under overpasses and those sorts of things that are shaded.
Cooler
areas. You really have to be careful that because it could be upon you, and all of a sudden, as you say, you hit the brakes and you just keep going.
So one of the things you said just before we went on, you said that the vehicles that we tend to see in crashes, and a lot of them, we see almost 800 a day in December, tend to be the ones that think they're more I guess, safe on the road because they're driving an SUV or a pickup truck.
Yeah, you tend to...
Invincible drivers, right?
After that first snowfall, which are the vehicles that you tend to see in the ditch, or the ones that you don't think you're going to see in the ditch? The large trucks, the four-wheel drive vehicles, because I think the drivers of those vehicles tend to forget that they're just as susceptible as everyone else to the conditions. Maybe having that four-wheel drive will stop you from getting stuck, but it's not going to make you stop any faster.
That's the braking power and the cornering power that's missing.
That's right. So really the message is out to everyone that when winter driving hits, you really have to drive to the road conditions. Everybody seems to want to, in any conditions, drive the speed limit, whereas the speed limit is set as the maximum allowable speed under ideal conditions. And during winter, conditions are not ideal, so slow down, give yourself more following distance between you and the vehicle in front of you. So if you have to make a quick stop, that you've got a better chance of not running into that vehicle in front of you.
Yeah, the other one is, I said a little bit, I lived in Alberta for a while, the Highway 2 between Edmonton and Calgary, you kind of get sucked into the flow of traffic too. You know what I mean? Like the traffic's flowing and you think you need to flow with that traffic. And then all of a sudden you'll see like 50 cars and trucks and everything kind of like strewn all over the place. Right. And the good thing about there is that they have big, deep ditches where you can kind of just go into the ditch, as opposed to in BC, you go off the road here and it could be really harmful.
Really tragic. Yeah. One of the things that we say is that slow down, give yourself more time. And that might mean that somebody's going to come up right behind you and flash their lights at you or something like that. Well, don't let that bother you. If you can, find a safe place to pull off the road, let that person go past you. Drive to what you think is the safe speed under those conditions, and that will likely keep you safer.
How important are winter tires for people, especially if they work vehicles and stuff like that too? How important is that?
Well, winter tires are very important, and a lot of people refer to them as snow tires, whereas we call them winter tires because one of the things that is not well understood about winter tires is that they're made of a different rubber compound, and that rubber compound has better grip at lower temperatures. So it's not just about giving you the traction that you might need in
Softer
snow.
rubber, right?
It's softer rubber that will adhere better to pavement at lower temperatures. And that temperature, that breaking point is about 7 degrees Celsius. So once you start getting into temperatures like we have right now, below 5 degrees and hovering around zero, that's when you really want your winter tires. And you want to make sure they're in good condition. You want to make sure they're inflated properly as well. Because I think a lot of us never check their tire inflation unless we're getting our tires changed. And as soon as temperature drops, your inflation is going to drop as well. You want your tires to be operating at their maximum, so that means checking that tire inflation.
And you want to rotate them out in the summer because that soft rubber will really wear down really quick, and you won't have good winter tires when you need them. Right?
Yeah, there's all seasons. There are winter tires, but there's also something else called an all-weather tire, and that's a pretty good tire for situations like the Lower Mainland, where you don't see a lot of snow. You still get the cold temperatures. This is a winter-rated tire, the all-weather tire, but it's just maybe not as well suited to extreme winter conditions like we'll see in the interior. So the advantage, and one of the reasons that people like those tires, is that they don't have to change them. They can run them all year long, but they are still made of a softer rubber compound. So whereas you might get 3 or 4 years out of a set of all seasons, you might only get 2 out of 2 years out of.
Are those legal on the mountain passes?
Yes, they
those
are.
are legal on the
Yeah,
mountain passes?
anything that has that three-peak mountain and snowflake symbol,
So the M&S kind of thing.
the M plus S.
Yeah.
The M plus S talks more about tire tread. So you see a lot of all-season tires have the M plus S rating, but they are not as well suited to lower temperature driving.
Yeah, but obviously if you're in the interior, a good winter tire is probably your best bet, right? Because we do have a lot, like even like we look out the window right now or behind us, you can see the snow, and then because that's in between that little area is where you're going to find the ice too, right?
That's right. And then as soon as you start heading up over the Coquihalla, over the connector, you're going to hit snowy conditions.
So what are some of the ways that people can stay safe during like bad road conditions?
Yeah. Well, bad road conditions also coincide with the lowest light. December, one of the things that we think about is, boy, we're getting into winter conditions. People think of snow and ice, but we're also dealing with the month in which we have the fewest daylight hours. So visibility is really key. So that means making sure that your lights are all functioning properly, making sure you've got good windshield wiper blades. If you're up north or someplace where you get a lot of snow, there actually are winter special winter blades that you can put in, and we recommend those for those situations. But in most parts of the province, just make sure you've got a fresh set of windshield wiper blades, because that'll go a long way to improving your visibility. One of the other things that I think is key at this time of the year is if we get a snowfall and you come out in the morning and your car is covered in 10 centimeters of snow, you want to brush it all off.
Yeah, not that spot.
Not just that one spot, right? Because what happens is you'll start driving, and all of that snow is going to blow up into your windshield. Yeah. The snow on your trunk and on your roof is going to blow into the vehicle behind you. Yeah. So you want to clear as much as you can, because chances are at this time of the year you're going to be commuting to work in the dark. You're going to be coming home in the dark. You're going to be going to all the holiday activities in the dark. So you really do need to maximize your visibility at this time of the year, as well as ensuring you have good tires and that you have the right attitude for driving in winter conditions.
And even like cleaning around the wiper blades, like getting all that snow off, because you end up with this ice dam, and the wiper blades come like clogged with ice, and they don't work. Then they skip big areas of the window, and
That's
it
right.
just
And
becomes a
it can
mess,
be
right?
even worse.
Yeah.
And clearing your headlights and taillights as well, because not only do you want to be able to see where you're going, you want to be able to see other vehicles, you want to be able to see pedestrians, and you want other vehicles to be able to see you. So really making sure that you're clearing as much.
Taking a couple minutes and just having a good snow brush, really, right?
Yeah, and I think one of
Not the credit card.
not the credit card. You want to have a brush and a proper scraper. But at this time of the year, I think what's really key is that people don't give themselves enough time. That there are a lot of activities that are happening, and we say you need to change your attitude at this time of the year from one of I need to get there as quickly as I can to I need to get there safely. So you do need to give yourself a little bit more time to do just those things that we're talking about clearing your vehicle, but also being prepared for delays, ensuring that that you're not going to be going as quickly as you might normally in the summertime. So giving yourself more time, building more time into your activities is really critical.
And you don't want to become part of that statistic, and it's a pretty bad statistic, 800 a day in British Columbia.
Yeah.
And that means like you don't want to win that lottery.
That's right. And if you look at the province-wide statistics, understandably, the highest number of crashes and claims occur in the Lower Mainland. You've just got the
More
most
traffic,
people,
yeah.
more traffic,
Yeah.
more vehicles on the road.
A lot of new drivers.
A lot of new drivers who maybe have not driven in winter before.
Yeah.
But also, the Okanagan sees its fair share of crashes and claims, and even more so than southern Vancouver Island. So, it's maybe that's a function of the fact that we deal with more serious winter conditions here than you would in southern Vancouver Island. But we have our share here as well. It's not just a Lower Mainland
Distracted
problem.
driving obviously plays a big role, and down in Lower Mainland, lots of times it's multiple vehicles, like rear enders, like bang, 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 and following too close, distracted. The phone has obviously caused a lot of grief for traffic.
Yeah, well, the message should not be leave your phone at home. It's leave your phone alone.
Yeah.
Because we want to have a fully charged phone in your car because
safety.
Because that may well be a lifesaver. If you get stuck, you need to call for help. That's how you're going to do it. But you don't want to be distracted by that phone when you're driving, especially during winter. You want to be able to giving driving your full attention. I'll tell you a quick anecdote. In the spring, Road Safety at Work manages a program called the Cone Zone program, which is a campaign to raise awareness about the dangers that roadside workers face. And that's not just construction workers, but it could be police, fire, ambulance, could be utility workers, municipal workers, tow truck drivers. A lot of people work at the roadside. So we do an event. We call it an enforcement event. This year we did it in conjunction with the city of Surrey. Had a live site where they were doing municipal road work, and the police were out enforcing around that work zone. And in the space of an hour, they handed out 40 tickets. 30 of them were for cell phone infractions. Wow. Just in a 2-block span, they handed out 30 infractions for illegal.
Well, I sit at the light and I can see it all the time. You can see when somebody's doing this, like you know that they're playing with their phone, right? Yeah. Like it's like, and just connect your phone to Bluetooth and then put it away, put it in your pocket, put it in your purse, put it wherever you have to, and just you don't need to, right? Just if you have to make a phone call, make a phone call.
Yeah, and pull off safely to do it. It's if you're just as I say, it's great to have that phone in the car as a safety backup, but don't be using it.
It only takes a second too, right? Especially in the winter, you just don't have that stopping power that you think you have, right?
You need to give driving your full attention, especially in the wintertime when light is low. We're often driving in dark conditions, and roads might be slippery, and there's a lot of people on the road.
One of the things I did for my kids is I always said just go in an empty parking lot on first snow and just check your brakes, like feel your stopping power, understand your tires, and then you kind of get a feel, because I think a lot of people get surprised that all of a sudden they're stopping because you get used to it in good roads, where you can stop, and all of a sudden that is no longer the case, right?
Yeah, well, it's great advice. Find an area that you can go into and just get a feel for your car. Driving in winter conditions is not really something you can learn in a classroom. You have to get behind the wheel of a vehicle and get the experience. And I remember for myself learning how to drive, going up to the ski hill and coming down from the ski hill and seeing how your vehicle performs in those conditions. And you learn a lot when you're in those conditions about your vehicle. So yeah, that's if you can do that, if you can take that time and have an opportunity to get into a parking lot or something and understand that braking, steering, how it all works in snow.
Yeah, the one thing I also suggest usually to the kids in that is have a safety kit in your car, and that includes some granola bars and a blanket and some other things. Because if you go on the connector or the Coke, you could end up stuck there for 4 or 5 hours when they close the roads.
Yeah, a lot of us have run into that situation, or if you're on Highway 1, as an example, through the Revelstoke Golden
Rogers
area,
Pass,
you could be stuck while they're doing avalanche control. So having things like some snacks, granola bars, a bag of nuts, water, again, that fully charged cell phone, flashlight if you have to get out, maybe a high visibility vest or something like that in case you're out on the side of the road, and things to keep yourself warm too. I think one of the pieces of advice that we often give about winter driving is that you may get into the car because you're going somewhere. Let's say you're going skating or something like that. So you're all bundled up. You've got your hood on. You've got a big winter jacket on. You've got your winter boots on. You get behind the wheel of the car and all of that stuff. Well, all of a sudden now you can't do shoulder checks because you're all bundled up. You got these big boots on that you can't drive.
Can't get to the pedals.
Can't get to the pedals. So have all that stuff in your car, especially if you're going on a long road trip. Have warm winter clothes, jackets, hats, gloves, boots, but don't try to drive with them on. Make sure you've got something that's warm but is flexible so that you can make those shoulder checks and be able to react quickly. And winter boots are just the worst for trying to drive it.
Yeah, and I drive an EV, so I'm going to just add a little EV safety here. Charge more than you need to. Make sure you have a full charge every time, wherever you can charge, because you don't want to get stuck on a mountain pass and have some, being worried, stressing about the battery. Right?
Absolutely. And a question for you, do you find that the weight of driving an EV affects winter driving at all?
I think it's better myself. I drive a Tesla and it feels like they're stuck to the road.
Right.
It's very heavy and it sits down the low center of gravity. And they're a very safe vehicle. Plus, it has a lot of driver assistance.
Right.
Like if you start to vary off the road, it kind of corrects you. Even if you're not in full self-drive mode, it will kind of grab the wheel on you.
Right.
And make sure you're paying attention. And it'll flash if you're not paying attention. There's a whole bunch of safety features built into those cars. But the weight for sure is that low center of gravity really helps for sure, right? And it's a well-distributed weight.
Also affect your stopping distance too. So
it's a well-distributed weight. Versus like lots of times with a rear wheel drive pickup, or you know what I mean, because you got a light. Sandbags are definitely helpful when you want to put some weight on the back. And then the same goes for a lot of cars, right? Like front wheel drive or rear wheel drive. Like front wheel drive, you got that weight on the front wheels, but you still got a light butt, right? So sandbags help, right?
Yeah, and sandbags are great for a couple of reasons. One, a little bit of added weight. But if you need to get some sort of traction assist, people say, well, there's some kind of melt that you can use,
ice melt and stuff like that,
kitty litter and things like that. We just say, just get a bag of sand. That's probably going to
because it does two things, right?
Like that, it gives you a little bit of weight, and it enables you to maybe sprinkle a little bit around.
Or you can eat a couple of pizzas and have a few like soda pops before you go out, so you can put on some weight. Right? Better off with the sandbags, and they're cheap, and most gas stations have them.
That's right.
Yeah, especially pickup trucks. I think, like you say, a lot of pickup trucks think they're invincible, and their back end is very, very light.
Yeah, just make sure you're driving for the conditions, and that can often mean slowing down.
Yeah, and then any advice for parents to give to the younger ones and stuff like that, because obviously sometimes young drivers, that's the first time they're seeing that stuff too.
Well, I think just what you have suggested is how do you actually get an opportunity to learn behind the wheel, to learn how your vehicle behaves in the snow. I think that's really critical. So doing a ride along with your kids and just passing along some of your knowledge.
Not a screaming ride along.
Yeah, grabbing the dashboard. But yeah, and so do a ride along and help them in those conditions to learn how the vehicle behaves. But also really driving home the messages too about distractions. And making sure that they're not distracted by phones, because we know, I think all of us are guilty of wanting to see what's going on our phones.
Any resources that people can turn to?
Yeah, so our website, roadsafetyatwork.ca, there's a lot of information on there. There's a button right at the top that says winter driving safety. You can click on there. It'll give you a lot of advice and resources on there. For employers, there's things like tailgate meeting guides and that sort of thing that you can sit down with your team and go through some of the advice that we give in there.
Put a GPS in there and just govern their. A lot of companies run GPSs, though, right? So
yeah,
they monitor the vehicles and
well, that's
can help them, right? So
that's one of the things that we advise too, especially employers who have an employee that's going out on the road by themselves, making a 2 or 3 hour trip. Certain things that you can do to make sure that they're checking in and that you know where they are and that they're safe.
Yeah, it's the Tesla too that has that built in, so your family can track you all the time. Good and bad, right?
Right. Yes. Well, my son tracks me on my cell phone. So.
There you go. Yeah, no, that's been great. It's been awesome. Anything else you want to share?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground today, but just driving home the message that drive for the conditions. Don't be afraid to be going a little bit less than the speed limit in these conditions. And the safest trip maybe you don't have to make. So if you can delay in very poor conditions, if you can delay your trip, that may be the safest thing you can do.
Yeah, and remember that these 800 crashes a day in BC, nobody got up in the morning and said, I'm going to get into a car accident, right? Mm-hmm. So those all happened to anybody and everybody, and there was lots of, it's a moment of distraction or just not paying full attention, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so the better you can do it being prepared, almost like a Boy Scout, be prepared, right?
Yeah, be prepared for anything in BC, because you could be on a mountain pass, you could be down at the coast where it's raining, but in December, of course, be prepared for almost always driving in the dark.
Well, we thank you, Trace Akers from Road Safety and Road Safety at Work. And you can go to the website. We'll put the link in the description. And even if you're just a regular residential person, you can go there.
Absolutely.
Good tips apply to everybody, right?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, and we thank you for watching KelownaNow.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. KelownaNow, local, independent. News you can trust.